On a Cleveland Cavaliers team that features the likes of Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, it's pretty easy to overlook a guy like Isaac Okoro. The player that the team affectionately refers to as Ice is seldom mentioned when we hear talk about the success this team is experiencing this season. He may not be as flashy as Donovan Mitchell, or as offensively gifted as Darius Garland, but Okoro plays a very important role for Cleveland, one that isn't often shown by traditional box score stats. Case in point, Okoro is averaging just 6.4 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 1.1 assists on the season while completing 49.4% of his total field goals, including a respectable 36.3% from three-point range. Now, in comparison to, say, Garland, who's putting up 21.7 points and 7.8 assists per game, it looks like Okoro should be coming off the bench or isn't contributing very much. But it's more nuanced than that. Isaac Okoro has always been a work in progress on the offensive end, but he always had the underlying abilities to do many of the things the Cavs have asked him to do since he's been drafted. He was not a noted marksman in his time at Auburn, but he showcased just enough of an outside shot while there for a team like the Cavs, who just so happened to be also short on perimeter defense, for them to take a flyer on him with the 5th overall pick, with the hopes that he could eventually develop into one of the league's most coveted and possibly most expensive archetypes, a 3-and-D wing. While he is typically considered to be undersized at 6'5", Okoro has slotted in at the 3 for most of his career, save for the typical spot start at the 2, as well as having to man the 2-guard role after the Cavs suffered numerous backcourt injuries last season. That appears to be where he is most comfortable. Now, heading into his 3rd season in the NBA, many fans ponder what exactly a leap would look like for him, and considering the 3rd-year jumps that both Colin Sexton and Darius Garland took, you couldn't blame the typical fan for wondering if he too would make that fabled 3rd-year leap. The thing is, he was never likely to experience that same type of hike in production due to numerous factors, most of them out of his control. First, Okoro is not what one would even remotely consider a high usage player. Hell, he's never cracked north of 14% usage rate. That puts him in the 8th percentile for all wings as of recording this video. He has never truly been a player who has thrived as a primary ball handler because of his lack of handles. That means that he typically needs offense to be created for him more often than not, although he has gotten better at attacking closeouts. Over 85% of his made field goals have been assisted upon, putting him in the 19th percentile among wings. However, that isn't necessarily an issue so much as an observation. Tons of players occupying important roles fall right in line with this, including Miami's Max Strus and Denver's Michael Porter Jr. You just need to be able to capitalize off the looks being generated for you, and to his credit, Okoro has. He is knocking down a career-high 36.3% of his triples this year. Nearly all of those are from catch-and-shoot attempts, 161 of 171 to be exact, of which he has completed over 36.6%. Not necessarily an improvement over last season, but enough to warrant continued opportunities when open. And that has been the case for him this season. On the surface, Okoro's percentage paints him as a reliable shooter, and he has been since the start of the 2023 calendar year, as he has converted 44.1% of his threes. The problem, much like it has been for the previous 2 seasons, has been the volume. Okoro is taking only 2.3 triples per game this season. Perhaps this is the primary reason why one of his total triples attempted have been what NBA.com considers tightly defended. The other 170 are considered open or wide open. The thing that I find most interesting is that he has actually been pretty damn accurate when he does take more. This year, in games where Okoro has attempted exactly 3 triples, he's knocked down 36.1% of them. That's a sample size of 12 games. When he opts to take exactly 4, that number rises to 43.8%, a sample size of 16 games. In my opinion, that's the sweet spot for him. 4 triples attempted per game. To me, that suggests Okoro has actually made progress in this department, and that if he'd only take more threes, he'd finally earn the coveted moniker of 3-and-D. Outside of that, he has always been excellent in transition, where he currently ranks within the 84th percentile and knocks down 64.2% of his looks. That's the 3rd highest on the team among players who've suited up for at least 65 games. Watching Okoro run out in transition is a thing of absolute beauty. He generates a decent number of and-one opportunities while doing so, leading the pack with a 5.4% frequency in this category. That's pretty much what his offense consists of at this point. Catch and shoot opportunities combined with a few transition baskets. He does cut around to try and free himself up, but by and large, it's completely normal to see him standing in the corners on most possessions waiting for one of the Cavs ball handlers to find him, where he'll either do one of two things. Generally, pump fake the defender into the air, leading to a drive to the basket where he can draw contact.
Out of the pick and roll, Mobley spins it now to Okoro. And he got it.
Be happy and feel good about the opportunity to make up for it with everyone getting back.
Or he'll attempt a three ball where defenders are likely to leave him open. There is typically no in between.
7 of 17 here today. Allen foul line off to an open Okoro. He knocks it down.
Starting lineup tonight, Stevens is expected to see limited minutes as here's Isaac on cue. Got it.
Yes. That time he did a good job.
That's just his role right now with so many mouths to feed offensively. He has basically been rendered the fifth option in the starting lineup, and that's okay for the moment as long as he is making his shots, especially when factoring in the considerable amount of talent that he shares the court with most nights in Mitchell, Garland, Mobley, and Allen. Those four account for 58.4% of Cleveland's 85.1 total field goal attempts per game, which actually ranks 26th in the NBA. I don't see any realistic way Okoro's shot attempts increase, unless the Cavs somehow magically increase their pace of play, which at this point in the season just isn't likely to happen. This is why Okoro is not appreciated enough, because offense sells and most of what he brings to the table doesn't show up on that side of the ball. Where his presence is most felt is defensively, where he has quietly become one of the league's better perimeter defenders. And while it's no secret that Okoro was taken by the Cavs largely based off his defensive capabilities, no one really knew whether that would carry over to the next level, especially considering that he only suited up in one season for Auburn. Is he a lockdown defender at this point? Probably not. He is, however, the Cavs' best perimeter defender and is continually trending upwards on that end and is always up for the defensive challenge. I don't think it's out of the question for him to earn some form of all defensive honors over the coming years. He's that valuable to the defensive scheme of the Cavs, especially considering that he is typically tasked with defending the opponent's best perimeter option, be it a supersized wing or a speedy guard. On the 2022-23 season, Okoro is limiting opponents to 47.9% from the field. That is tied with last year's Defensive Player of the Year, Marcus Smart. He has spent the majority of his time defending guards as opposed to forwards. And for comparison's sake, Okoro has allowed guards to complete 47% of their total field goals, including 46.9% from three-point range on 4.6 total attempts. This accounts for roughly 60.8% of his defensive assignments. Now against forwards, Okoro has actually fared slightly better as he's limiting them to 45.7% from the field, including 42.9% from three-point range. This accounts for 34.1% of his defensive assignments. When you take it a step further and look at the matchups themselves, Okoro's value looks even clearer. He has limited the likes of CJ McCollum to 4 of 12. Drew Holiday to 2 of 10. John Morant to 2 of 10. Trae Young to 1 of 7, and maybe most importantly, for at least this upcoming series with the Knicks, he's held Jalen Brunson to 2 of 11. Those are some of the best guards in the game. Now conversely, when defending forwards like DeMar DeRozan, he hasn't fared as well, but is still giving his all. DeRozan is 8 of 15 against Okoro. Michael Bridges, 8 of 12. Jaylen Brown, 4 of 8. Pascal Siakam, 5 of 7. All of this is to say that Okoro is a multifaceted defender capable of defending both guards and forwards. He is quite literally the Cavs' best point of attack defender on the perimeter. Because he isn't often given a high amount of shot attempts, Okoro may never truly get the recognition he deserves, but there will always be a place for players like him in the NBA, and the Cavs likely won't be able to make a deep playoff run this season without his contributions. It's high time we appreciate him.
Put it up again. 8 seconds to go.